This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's going on, real MVPs? Welcome to another episode of What's Your Fantasy? I'm Brandon Swanson, and across the table from me is Ricky Widmer, looking a bit perplexed.
What's up? I'll get to that in a second.
All right, well, welcome in again. It's week 3. It is week 3. Can you believe it already? We are rolling right along, and we have seen some really good football so far in the first 2 weeks of the season. Hopefully, you are coming to us 2-0, unless, of course, you played us. But unfortunately for us, you would have beat us. Yeah. But we're going to get into that in a minute.
Are we better than the New York Jets? That's for you to decide.
Are we better than the New York Giants? The answer would be everyone is, so yes.
We might not even be better than the Dolphins. That's how bad we are.
That's bad. We are definitely better than the Dolphins.
We'll get into it.
The margin of victory against us is not 92 points. So anyways, hold your thoughts. But before we get started, as always, if you want to support this podcast and all podcasts on MVP, head over to patreon.com, become a patron today. Just for $1, you can support the podcast. So I think that, Ricky, now we can get into it. And it's not pleasant. It's not pretty to get into, as you well know, and we've talked about already. But I'm going to kick it to you. We are 0-2. Ricky, take it away.
So first, what I have to do, I've got a double fantasy update because our boy Zion reminded us or something that one season is not technically over, although we kind of act like it is here at MVP. And I checked our baseball fantasy for a hot second. We're still in first.
Not by much, though.
It's 72 to 67. The stats man. I think it's Eric is the stats man. Yeah, Eric Kwan. He's coming for us. He's coming for us late in the year. Javi's been injured. We have Fernando Tatis, who just hit the 60-day DL. Tin Beckham Jr., I think, is suspended for us.
Excellent.
I may tonight or early tomorrow have to fiddle with our lineups a little bit so we don't lose.
And Lucas Giolito is out for the year now, too.
Oh, that's right. He's listed day to day, but really I just swap him with Cole Hamels because Cole Hamels is on our bench. But pitching, we're fine. No, pitching, we're A-okay. It's 9s, 8s, it's saves. That's really like, and Lucas Giolito and Cole Hamels aren't going to get us saves. The thing that's really killing us is average. Our average is just tanked. We're 5, and 9's the highest. So, like, we're middle of the pack at average. We can't fall much lower, and that's the problem that we're facing. Here's the curveball I said I was going to throw you, and this is for Zion Florex, who on Twitter hit us up on a podcast. I wanted to throw it to you really quickly because he asked us about it, and obviously, you're going to have more of an opinion on this than me because I looked at it and went, well, that's the end of an era. He did ask us how we felt about Dave Dombrowski leaving the Red Sox. Did you have any thoughts on that, or am I just throwing you a curveball and you're swinging at it low and missing?
No, I do. I had some thoughts, and I did respond just to him. I don't think that I had mentioned you in that one, but I did respond to him, and I think it's just kind of a shame that they got rid of him because I'm just looking up here really quickly how long Dombrowski was with the Red Sox. He was with the Red Sox from 15 to 19. So if we go from 15 to 19, in 2015 when he first took over, the Red Sox were at 78 and 74. That's on the heels of a 71 and 91 2014. So,
and 2 years removed from a World Series.
Yes. So you have a 78 and 84 2015. Not good by a Boston Red Sox standards.
Mm-hmm.
But then in 2016, 93 and 69. In 2017, they found a way to go 93 and 69 yet again.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those they lost in the playoffs 3-0 in 2016 and 3-1 in 2017, ALDS both times. In 2018, of course, they won the World Series 108-54. And then in 2019, they're 79-70 as of right now. They're not going to go to the playoffs, and they're firing Dave Dombrowski. They've already fired him. I mean, he's gone from the team.
And the thing I do want to throw in there, just as a little like kicker, the two teams they got swept by in the ALDS. I know one of them's true. I think the other one's true as well, that both teams they lost to went on to either win the World Series or go to the World Series.
Houston in 17.
And then the Indians lost to the Cubs.
Indians in 16.
Yeah, well, the Indians almost, probably should have won, but God was like, I'll grace the Cubs with the World Series.
He's like, I'm tired of these people complaining that they haven't won in so long, so I'll shut them up. But unfortunately, what he didn't realize is that not only were the Cub fans not going to shut up, they wouldn't stop talking about it.
Well, he just won't give us any more. It's another 100 years we have to wait.
Well, it's because you guys were talking so much about it. He's like, I can't listen to this.
My kid may not get to see one. That's the point.
And no one is upset about that.
No one cares about your kid, Ricky.
No one cares about your children.
Metaphorical children. I don't want people thinking I have kids.
To quickly answer this question, I think it's a horrible move. I think it's crap. I think that Dave Dombrowski was not rightfully fired. It's not his fault. I understand that people are going to say the Red Sox have this huge payroll and they've got this awesome talent. They've got Mookie Betts. They've got JD Martinez. They've got Xander Bogaerts. They've got Chris Sale. Well, Chris Sale was not Chris Sale this year. Mookie Betts was not last year's batting like 340 throughout the entire season. Mookie Betts. I mean, it's just they're going to be seasons like this. And the Yankees
are really fucking good.
But here's the thing, though, too, is the Yankees have also seen seasons like this, and they didn't go, Brian Cashman, you're out. They stuck with him. And see where they're at right now? They're tied for the best record in baseball, at least they were as of a day ago, with the Houston Astros. With the, was it the Dodgers or the Astros? Either way, they were tied with one of them. Who cares? They're all great. But the thing is that it's almost like they pulled the trigger too quickly on getting rid of Dombrowski. I don't think that this is a Dave Dombrowski issue. This is they weren't lucky this year. You need, I'd say this personally, and they say it all the time in golf. Rather be lucky than good. Well, this year the Red Sox weren't lucky and they weren't good, but there's a lot of luck that goes into it, especially down the line when it's going at the end of the season or playoff time. I really think after you look, again, took over in 2015, that was a losing season. 16 was not. 17 was not. 18 obviously was not. 19, they're still not going to have a losing season. But he's out. It doesn't make sense to me. You can turn it around next year. You hope that everyone's healthy. You can't account for injuries. You can't control that. I just think that ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's really crappy, and it's an unfortunate situation for Dave Dombrowski, who did a phenomenal job when he came over to the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, and that's just something I was thinking about, because when Zion tweeted at you, I know I saw it. I was like, oh, well, fantasy-wise, I'm like, oh, that season's technically not over. So I wanted to throw that in here at the beginning. But let's get into the real meat and potatoes. How bad our fantasy team is. This past week, we lost Tristan Brisky. Went ahead and beat us. He only scored 76.8, so not a lot of points. I'll be honest, he had some clunkers on his team. He left Mike Bagley in, who was out. He didn't play for the Chargers, so he got him 0 points. You had the Cowboys defense, had him 3. He got around 8 points from Ebron, DJ Moore, and Michael Thomas, but nothing you're expecting. Here's our team. You ready for this? So Matt Ryan gets us 19, respectable. Our second leader, Tyrell Williams. Thank you, Tyrell Williams, for coming up with double digits. Besides that, Amendola got us 0. Hawkinson got us 0.7. The Jets defense got us 4. Jake Elliott got us 7. David Johnson got 7.4. Marlon Mack 6.3. Julian Edelman 5.2. So here's what I'm thinking. Marlon Mack is probably just a down week for him in the Colts. Julian Edelman, I don't know if this is an AB situation or not. AB got a lot of red zone targets and a lot of targets as well. Maybe we just stay away from Amendola and don't even play him. But here's the thing. Here's our bench. You ready for our bench? Jared Cook, 2.5. Could have been he was going up against the Rams. We'll start Hockenson over Cook, although Hockenson did do worse of the two. Corey Davis actually scored some points. Too bad it was only 3.8. Donta Moncrief, 0 points.
He's bad
in that game.
We can drop him.
Justice Hill, 1.4. Falcons defense, after a clunker in week 1, came back, scored 11. Still wouldn't have helped us win, though. That would have been what? I'm thinking, if my math is correct, 7 points. We will lost 76 to 67, so it wouldn't have helped. And then we've got to drop Nick Foles and John Doxson because they're on the IR. So here's what I'm thinking, Brandon. First off, we need to tackle wide receiver because Tyrell Williams is good. I still think we roll David Johnson, Marlon Mack. We can't
I do too.
They just had bad weeks, and David Johnson got injured. Julian Edelman, I don't think we panic on either.
No,
there's going to be down
weeks
either with AB. We need a backup wide receiver because right now, or running back, but really wide receiver because the running back pool is weaker. From last week, here were the studs. To me, there were 2 big studs, but a third guy, and this is just based off of last week. First off, Devin Smith with the Cowboys.
And now Michael Gallup is out for a couple of weeks, so that may not be a bad ad.
So we got Devin Smith. Then you've got Isaiah McKenzie, who had 10.4 with the Buffalo Bills.
And I don't like anyone on that
team. And
then
the sneaky one, and I don't know really how to trust this team, TJ Jones had 9.8 with the Giants this past week.
Ooh, no, I wouldn't touch him either.
But if you look at the averages, you have Philip Dorsett, but this past week his average is 12.7, but he had 3.9 this past week. TJ Jones, Devin Smith, already talked about them. Bernie Fowler had 7.1 this past week. He's high on the average. I'm trying to see. Cordell Patterson had 5 points this week. And then really Isaiah McKenzie.
It's thin.
It's very thin. This is what an 18-team league is like, Brandon. We got 18 teams all jockeying for the off. Or we make a trade.
Trade time.
Or we trade Marlon Mack. We've been getting trades for Marlon Mack.
Or what about anyone want David Johnson?
Do we shop one of them for a lesser running back and a wide receiver?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you and I will have to look at that. Look at teams. If you want Marlon Mack and have of quality people, we've been getting some trade requests.
Yeah, we've been having some really pathetic trade requests.
I'm going to send the one. I'm putting you on blast. I don't care because it's a shit offer. What was it? Where is it? I sent it to you. I thought I sent it to you.
Yeah, it was crap.
Did I not send it to you?
You showed me, but it was garbage.
There it is. So this is coming from Ass Interference. Yeah, this trade was ass. Total ass. Don't even offer this again. He wanted Marlon Mack and TJ Hockenson. TJ Hockenson didn't have a big week 2, but he had a big week 1. He wanted to give us Melvin Gordon, who we've talked about is not going to play a game this year. Will Fuller, who's coming off of injury, and then Mike Davis, who's probably the 3rd, 4th running back, depending on how you want to use Cordero Patterson in that Bears offense. Get out of here with that.
I mean, if you're going to offer a trade,
garbage.
Offer something of substance.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
right?
I'm not just talking about a trade to us, to anyone. If you actually want to be serious about trading, then come back to us. If not, put it away.
Here's the top running backs from last week that's available. Jeff Wilson Jr. had 15 points from the Niners.
Nope.
Then at 8.6, Jordan Wilkins from the Colts.
Nope.
And then at 5 points, we had D'Ernest Johnson.
You can't even say his name. We're not going after him
Johnson
either.
From the Browns.
No.
Besides that, there's like Amir Abdullah. There's Wendell Smallwood.
I don't even want to hear it. We've got to make a trade. We've got to make a trade.
We can go with
Nope.
Alex Amar from Carolina.
I'm done. I'm not even listening to you now.
Yeah, they're like this is weak. We didn't draft well. That's basically how I'm playing this. Even with quarterbacks, I'm like, is Matt Ryan like 19 points this past week? But is Matt Ryan even good? That's kind of what I'm thinking a little bit. I don't like our team at all. But that is it. If we go to standings, for those of you who are not in the league, obviously we're 0-2. We join 5 other teams that are now 0-2, only 2 in our conference. In the Eastern Division, our division, Top Cats, who beat us, and then Team Baker's Brownies are both 2-0, a bunch of 1-1s, and then us and Taco Corp are 0-2. And then on the West, we've got Cleveland at Adhan Choose, 2-0, Chi-Town Bears 2-0, Deb Bears, and then Los Angeles Nico De Tico is 2-0, 3 1-1s, and then 3 0-2s. So really, we are behind the 8 ball heading into week 3, and now we're 2 games behind the division leaders.
Well, Ricky, when it comes down to it, we don't want to win the league. We don't want to take, that away from somebody else.
Mama didn't raise a quitter, Brandon. Mama also didn't raise a loser. I want to win this league. I want to win. Coming for the throats. Let's do this.
Well, then maybe you should have just let me draft the whole team this year.
Why? We wouldn't win then.
Oh, yeah, we would. I would. Yeah.
Some of these picks this year, I'm like, you pick Brandon. I picked the entire team last year.
Yeah. Well, I picked Tyrell Williams. I think Marlon Mack, Matt Ryan.
We also didn't pick Sammy Watkins because you didn't want him.
What did he do this last week?
But we would have won week 1.
Who cares?
We would have been 1-1.
Who cares?
Our team is ass. Maybe we should just change our team name from Team Kick
to just
Team
ass. Just ass. I think we should call it just ass.
Just ass.
Well, let's not continue on with that. So obviously we suck.
Yeah, we're garbage.
And we're going to offer a lot of trades this week.
Yeah, we're garbage.
But let's move on to our first topic this week. So we had a lot happen in the NFL this past weekend. And Ricky's kiss of death does seem to be staying alive as
I was worried.
We had a couple of quarterbacks go down with injuries, Drew Brees being one of them. And Drew Brees, they're reporting, is going to miss at least 6 weeks with a thumb injury, and it looks to be ligament damage to that thumb. And remember, Drew Brees is 40 years old, and you just kind of wonder how much longer now with this injury is he going to have? Is it really only going to be 6 weeks? Is it going to take longer than that? Is he ever going to be right when he gets back? That's a question. Is Teddy Bridgewater going to be the guy? Is Taysom Hill going to be the guy? Most would think it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater. He's the highest paid backup quarterback in the league. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't it be Teddy Bridgewater? And then also Ben Roethlisberger for the Pittsburgh Steelers down with an elbow injury. The Pittsburgh Steelers are all out of sorts. I don't trust their wide receivers. They look bad. They trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. A lot of people are going, why would they do that? They're 0-2. They're awful. Well, if you can't get good on the offensive side, let's just try and be a little bit better on the defensive side. Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be nothing but better for you if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers on defense. They give up a first-round pick for it, but who cares? And I also think Mason Rudolph, he looked pretty good in that game when he came in against the Seattle Seahawks. And I think the kid's going to be good. I thought it when he was coming out of college right away. I think he's going to be good.
He had a really nice deep ball to Juju that it was like...
Yeah, he did.
If Juju didn't have to stop and then jump up and catch it, it would have been almost reminiscent to the deep balls he was throwing to James Washington, who's also on that team back in college.
Ricky, did I miss any other quarterbacks? Trevor Siemian went down last night. He wasn't a starter, but he was the immediate backup, so it looks like it's Luke Falk's team.
Eli is dead.
And Eli Manning, no injury, but the Giants are just so bad they're going to blame it on Eli and bench him. Yeah. And now, in that, Ricky, I know I brought this up last week and you poo-pooed it, but does Eli get traded?
No. I think what's going to happen is, and Adam Schefter made a good point, if you're thinking about family, Eli, all of his family's in New Jersey. Does he want to basically uproot? He's nearing 40 years old. Does he want to uproot everything to move somewhere else to try to squeeze out maybe another year? Like, and I get the point. People are going to say like the Brett Favre thing of like when you get close to the end, you want to squeeze as much of that out before you say goodbye. I kind of have a feeling we're going to see one of two things. Either end of the year happens and Eli goes to a team that needs it, or he retires at the end of the year. However, one thing I was thinking about in my head, I'll ask you this because you brought it up. If you're Tom Coughlin, I know Gardner Minshew has been playing fairly well, and Gardner Minshew almost won them that game against Houston last week. I tweeted out after, I don't care that they lost, Gardner Minshew for MVP. Let's start that right now. But if you're Tom Coughlin, hey, Gardner Minshew's playing well, but that's not translating to wins. Jalen Ramsey wants out. Let's try to get a pick and Eli from the Giants and ship Ramsey over to New York.
I don't do that. I don't think that there's any sense in doing that. Gardner Minshew looks like a guy who's doing really well. He looks really confident. And if you bring in Eli Manning, I think it just kills his confidence because it's like I'm doing this well.
Is he the future anyways? Because Nick Foles is coming back next year anyways. Like Gardner Minshew's the backup.
I'm still rolling with Gardner Minshew. Okay. I'm not. If I'm Tom Coughlin, if I'm Bruce Arians and I see what I have, I may be saying, "Hey, Eli, do you want to come here and play with us?"
I don't know. Jameis went and here's another side note I want to say, because there were people via Twitter and other places that were like, "Hey, Ricky, I thought Jake said it to me a lot this week. Hey, Ricky, I thought you said he misheard me. When I said start the Panthers, I didn't mean all of them. I just meant the defense. Their defense only scored like 3 points this week in fantasy. But Jameis Winston did not do well. Like, he had over 200 yards. He didn't lose the game. He didn't throw any interceptions. But let's be honest. If Barber didn't have the game that he did, they don't win that game. Like, Jameis Winston did enough to not lose the game. Jameis Winston did not win them the game. He was not the X factor in that game. So let's not go in, to quote the late Denny Green, let's not crown his ass or anything. He is who he thought he was, or he is who we thought he was, or what he still is.
So, Ricky, my question to you after talking about these quarterbacks that are down, that could be hurting some people in fantasy. Yeah. A lot of people had Drew Brees. A lot of people had Big Ben. Certainly a lot less people probably had Eli Manning, but who are you going to pick up now? Who are you trying to pick up? Are you trying to pick up their immediate backups? Are you going with Daniel Jones? Are you going with Mason Rudolph? Are you touching Teddy Bridgewater? Or are you trying to go in a different direction? Are you going for maybe someone who's still out there? A Jacoby Brissett. He had only 147 passing yards this past weekend, but he had 3 touchdowns. Are you going for someone like an Andy Dalton? He's had over 300 yards and at least 2 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. You know, are you going for somebody like that? What are you thinking, Mr. Widmer?
So, Jacoby Brissett's a good one, but there's mainly 2 that I've got my eye on. Number 1 comes from the good old state of New York. He wears the royal color of blue. He's a young quarterback. He's going to do a really good job. Like, he's really young. Team's really excited about him. He's a starting quarterback. How many of you think I'm talking about Daniel Jones?
You're talking about Josh Allen.
Because I'm talking about Josh Allen. Josh Allen is the guy you go with. I want to know how many people got worried, like, please don't say it. Please don't say it. Please don't say it. No, it's Josh Allen.
I knew you were going.
I ran into a little trouble when I'm like, shit, one's a rookie, one's not. So how do I make it sound like
he's very young?
He's very young still. But not Daniel Jones. Josh Allen, 22 points this last week, 15 the week before. He's feeling it. Like, without the 4 turnovers that he had in game 1, he would have had 22 points. I mean, the league I'm looking at, I go off of it goes off the point system my league has. So obviously there's negative, which thank God in our league, when an interception got thrown, I'm like, oh man, I don't feel bad at all. Throw as many of those as you want. I don't care. Like Drew Brees threw one, and I was like, ooh, if I had Drew Brees in that league, wouldn't have to worry about it. The thing though, and this is a side note, I hate Saint Rams games. Because it's like the officials, like they gouge their eyes out. They just don't care.
They just don't even care.
They took a touchdown. That's another thing. If that called it, so here's a little side point. For those of you who don't know, in the league that I joined, the keeper league that was Brandon's league, now we're both in, I was basically down by 2 points. I needed Deshaun Jackson or
Alshon Jeffrey.
Alshon Jeffrey, thank you, to score 2 points combined, and I would have won. They both died. They both died on the field.
And I do have to say, this is hysterical because I text Ricky and I go, looks like you're going to win. He's like, yeah, basically, as long as Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey don't die, I'm going to be good. And I go, well, it's kind of crazy that you have 2 wide receivers on the same team and you don't, spread it out a little bit because one bad day for them could really be one bad day for you. And what happens? Both of them, along with the rest of the Eagles team that night, got hurt, didn't catch a pass, wasn't even thrown to, wasn't even on the field. And I text Ricky back and I go, I guess they both died, huh?
There's 2 things that played into that. Number one, my 4 receivers, because we can only keep 4, we can only have 4 wideouts on the team, were Brandon Cooks, Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, and Christian Kirk. And Brandon Cooks I was weary about because he had about, 3.8 in me in that league last week. And I was talking to Jake about it, and I'm like, I'm going to start Deshaun and Alshon because they had 27 and 17 respectively last week. I'm like, but I think I'm going to go with Christian Kirk over Brandon Cooks. Well, I guess I should have went with Cooks and benched either Deshaun or Alshon because Cooks would have won me the game. You know what else would have won me the game, Brandon? You want to know what else would have won me the game? On a fumble recovery, that was a clear fumble, and Cameron Jordan, not Jordan Cameron, Cameron Jordan, scooped that bad boy up, and like a little baby, he ran that thing all the way into the end zone. I was cheering, dancing on my table. Woohoo! Got me a touchdown, because I got the Saints defense. And the blind, dumb refs took it away from me. Oh, well, you know what? We looked at the replay, and it's a fumble. But because we didn't call it a fumble, we're not going to say it's a touchdown.
They did call it a fumble. They blew the whistle.
Oh, no, I know.
They blew the whistle on it. That's why.
Idiots. They're idiots. I'm saying they're idiots.
I know, but you were misspeaking. Because you said they didn't call it a fumble. They did call it a fumble, but they blew the whistle.
They didn't give me the touchdown. That's the point. They gave me the fumble, not the touchdown. And I should have had that touchdown. What they should have done. I agree. And we all know what they should have done, but I'm going to tell you anyways. I'm watching another game. They're like, oh, that's a turnover. I don't know if it's a turnover. Hey, guess what? It's a turnover. Okay, let's review it. And I was like, why are they not at the ref? I'm like, why aren't they at the Rams and the Saints game? I was fuming. That would have won me the week also. My aside is over. Back to the quarterbacks. Josh Allen's had a really good 2 weeks. 15, would have had over 20 without his fumbles in the league I'm looking at. And then against the Giants, he had 22. The other guy, I said praise him. He's the MVP, Gardner Minshew. Like, if Jacoby's not available in your league, he's in a similar boat to Jacoby, where he's not throwing 3 touchdowns a game, but he's getting you the same amount of points that Jacoby is. Jacoby's had, in the league I'm looking at, how our scoring is 15 and 15. Gardner Minshew's had 17 and 15. So Minshew's not bad at all. Like, he's not no chopped liver. I'd even go after Gardner Minshew if he's available.
A guy who I think, if he is there, how about Case Keenum? Case Keenum has had a great start to the season against the Eagles. I know they lost, but not necessarily on him. It's on the defense. Mm-hmm. He had a perfect day, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And then against the Cowboys, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He's been solid so far to start the year.
Yeah, here's the only thing I worry about. Here's the only thing I worry about when it comes to Case Keenum is the defense he's going to play in week 3. He's playing a Bears defense, which has not looked like the same defense of last year because it's big old, hey, Chucky Pagano. It's Chuck Pagano, not Vic Fangio.
What do you mean it doesn't look like the same defense? Yes, of course it does.
No, like they're not getting as many takeaways that they were last year.
Yeah, but they're still getting the same amount of pressure and everything like that.
But here's the thing I'm looking at. Joe Flacco was also a quarterback in fantasy-wise, played that tough defense. I know it was in Denver, and maybe that played into it because that Bear defense looked gassed at the end of the game because, holy shit, high altitude. But I worry it's like, Case Keenum might not get his points. But at the same time, I go, Joe Flacco got 15. Why can't Case Keenum stay where he's been at and get 15 against the Bears? So it's like, it's one of those where it's like, do you think the Bears defense is going to show up in Washington on Monday night?
Yes,
or is
but it's
Case
also
still going to get his 15?
Yes and yes, because the Bears defense can show up, but Case Keenum could still get his points just due to volume.
Yeah.
Just due to they're going to have to probably throw it a lot.
Or Aaron Rodgers had 12 in week one.
One would like to assume, especially a Bear fan would like to assume, that the Bears offense will come alive one of these days. And that when better to do so than on Monday Night Football after you embarrassed yourselves on Thursday Night Football, that Monday Night Football might be a little bit better and you come alive. But Case Keenum, just due to volume, might be able to get his points on Monday.
Here's another one I'm going to ask you about. Do you go with Jimmy G? Jimmy G week 1 against Tampa Bay, not a good week. Only had 10 fantasy points. But against Cincinnati, I get it, Cincinnati had 21, 3 touchdowns, almost 300 yards. It's going up against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh hasn't been good this year. Do you roll with Jimmy G week 3?
I think that there's probably better options out there, but I also think that his performance last week against the Cincinnati Bengals is closer to the Jimmy Garoppolo that we'll usually see, not that week 1 performance against Tampa Bay. Okay. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is a better quarterback than that. He's probably somewhere in the middle of week 1 and week 2's performance. But, if that guy's available, I would say, try and go get him. But I still think that there's better guys in front of it. Like, I'd probably take Jacoby Brissett before I'm taking Jimmy Garoppolo at this point.
And it's weird to me looking at ESPN for like their percentage on rosters. Here are the guys that start at 54% and below. You ready for this? 54% of rosters, Mitchell Trubisky. 42% of rosters, Jameis Winston. 42, Kirk Cousins. 36, Derek Carr. 30, Josh Allen. 26%, Matthew Stafford. 24%, Garoppolo. Then a huge drop, 12%, Brissett. 11%, Sam Darnold. 9%, Mariota. 9, Dalton. 6, there's still 6% of leagues. The guys who don't check that still have Andrew Luck on a roster. But then it's like 4.9, Case Keenum. 4.6, Joe Flacco. There's quarterbacks out there for you guys to go get.
I'd even say Joe Flacco. I'd even say Joe Flacco is one. I mean, he's got weapons.
He's been consistent, 14 and 15 the last 2 weeks. But the thing I worry about Joe, and I worry about this more for Joe Flacco than I do for Case Keenum, is that Kirk Cousins, I know a lot of it was Kirk Cousins didn't look good in his own regards this past week. But for the past 2 weeks, this Packer defense that Joe Flacco is going to see has held quarterbacks to 8 points even in fantasy 2 weeks in a row. This Packer defense may be, fantasy-wise, if you're looking at your quarterback, may be more of a scary defense than that Bear defense I asked about when you brought up Case Keenum. So that's why if I'm thinking Flacco or Case, I would go Case over Flacco because that Packer defense, fantasy-wise, has kept quarterbacks in check.
All right, Ricky, you ready to talk about a running back?
Finally, we get to go. No, I like quarterbacks. But yeah, this is one that I even had a tweet thrown at me that you kind of was like, about the running back we're going to take a look at.
Yeah, so Kansas City Chiefs 2-0. They've been outstanding. They have had their high-powered offense on display. But one person who's really not getting into that high-powered fun, at least certainly not yet, is Damian Williams.
Mm-hmm.
When Kareem Hunt went away because he was an idiot, and there's no other way to describe it, he was a dumbass. But when he went away, Damian Williams stepped up and was huge. I think he had, 264 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns over the last 4 games of the season or something like that. I mean, they were pretty good numbers. So far this season, Damian Williams has 22 carries through 2 games for 34 yards and 1 touchdown. That's a 1.5 per carry average. In the game against Jacksonville, game 1, he had 13 carries for 26 yards and a touchdown. Okay, a touchdown. That's nice. He had 6 catches for 39 yards. If you're not in a PPR league, you could care less about that. And then in game 2, he had less carries, so he had 9 carries. LaShawn McCoy out-carried him. Didn't do much, 11 carries, 23 yards. But Damian Williams had 9 carries for 8 yards. Mm-hmm. And he caught 3 passes for 48 yards. Damian Williams has not been the guy Chiefs fans were hoping he would be. They were hoping he would be Kareem Hunt without the name Kareem Hunt. He has not been. LaShawn McCoy has definitely taken snaps away from him. I think he will continue to take snaps away from him. I think LaShawn McCoy, based off of the first 2 weeks, LaShawn McCoy might even end up beating him out for the starting role. Ricky.
Yeah.
Damian Williams. Is it time to cut ties with Damian Williams and try and go for somebody else? Or do you hold on to him because he's just in too good of an offensive system to let go?
Yeah, I would say let go of him. And the reason why I say that is I got a tweet, I think it was last night or this morning. I saw it this morning, I think. Or did I see it last night? Yeah, I saw it this morning. I saw it around noon, or this afternoon, I should say, where our boy at Canby Kid usually hits us up about fantasy advice. He wanted to know about a trade that he made, whether he gave up too much. And the trade was he gave up Le'Veon Bell and John Ross and got OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., and Damian Williams. And I quoted the tweet and said, I personally wouldn't have made the trade because OBJ is great, but I like both Bell and Ross at the moment over Williams. I'm like, OBJ has the potential to produce the same amount of points as both those guys, but it's not a for sure thing in my opinion. Look at week 1, like 10 points from OBJ. Then this last week, because he played the low-full Jets without Sam Darnold, and he looked like a completely different wide receiver. Now, I don't know if that's OBJ trending up because, hey, you don't play the preseason. You need basically week 1, week 2, week 3 is kind of like your preseason. But I look at what Le'Veon and Ross have been able to do. Le'Veon had still a good game, even with Trevor Siemian going down. Had 10 points in my league for me, helped me solidify a win this week, so I didn't have to worry about the dreaded stat correction today. But Canby Kid did reply, so I'll read his reply. He said, yeah, I see what you mean. We agreed on the deal before week 2, so I wasn't sure about Damian Williams' injury situation. My main concern with Bell was that the Jets aren't going to put any points up, and I'm scared they're going to run him into the ground now with Sam and Trevor out. And my thought before I ask you about it, because this plays into me why I would steer away from Williams, because that's really the main thing. If he got someone else other than Williams in this trade, then I could see like, okay, you got 2 guys that can get you points. But Williams to me is basically like, I can cut him tomorrow and not worry about it. I don't think that last part is an issue, though. Like, let the Jets run Le'Veon Bell into the ground. That's more usage for you. That's more points for you as a Le'Veon Bell owner. I know there's the thing of like, oh, if he gets injured, but if he does, there's that flip side. But if he doesn't, He's getting usage. And it's kind of like the old adage, let's throw as much shit as the wall as we can and see what sticks.
When I first saw the trade, I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
For him. I mean, he got Odell Beckham, but I mean, you gave away John Ross, who's a guy who, I know, over the last couple of years, he's been garbage, but this year, hold on, Ricky, this year he's been really great.
Mm-hmm. And
Le'Veon Bell is Le'Veon Bell. When he's on the field playing, he's one of the best running backs in the league.
Can I add one aside, though?
You sure can.
This past weekend is 17 points, and that's Ross. A lot of it came from he would have...
One catch,
without his touchdown grab, he would have had about, 10, 11 points. So that's all I wanted to throw on there.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, I don't know the rest of his team.
Mm-hmm. That's another thing that plays into it, too.
But it just feels like... I mean, if you're willing to give up Le'Veon Bell, you best have two other, at least really good running backs. Otherwise, you're a moron.
Mm-hmm.
Why, I still don't even understand. Are you able to see his team? Do you? No, he did.
He just screenshot. So, Canby Kid, if you're watching, shoot us over your team because that also plays into it well. Like for example, my team that I have in my personal league. I can get away with a trade like that because my other two running backs are Dalvin Cook and who's my other running back? I completely forget half the time. Marlon Mack. So I've got Dalvin Cook, Marlon Mack, and I also got Joe Mixon and Malcolm Brown sitting on my bench. So that's my running back situation on my team.
So I guess I just think that I don't know. I don't necessarily know if I like it. Yeah, OBJ is great to get, but you're getting Damian Williams, who, again, I didn't mention, was injured, left with an injury at the end of the Oakland game. Also, LaShawn McCoy left with an injury at the end of the Oakland game. So now we might be looking at Darwin Thompson, who can muddy the water even more there for Kansas City running backs. So I just stay away from all of them. But I guess going back to the trade, I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it.
But here's what I will throw out. Other guys, if you're in the same situation, guys, I've got Damian Williams. If I'm going to cut him, who do I pick up? I've got two that I want to throw out just right away. Number one, I am on the same boat. Obviously, I am because he's on my bench, as Matthew Berry. Malcolm Brown is a guy you want in leagues. And the reason why I say that is Week 2 didn't really show dividends, but look back to Week 1. 11 carries, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns. This guy has potential to not just take away some carries, but maybe vulture some touchdowns, get some yards from Todd Gurley. And we know about Todd Gurley. He looked good in Week 2. Looked a little bit like the Todd Gurley we remember. He looked good in
Week 1, too, for the second half.
But we know Todd Gurley. There could be a week where they just go, fuck it, we're not going to use Todd Gurley. Sean McVay, I'm still a little salty about that because you lost me a game last week. I just need a few more carries out of Todd Gurley to win that game. Would have made the playoffs if you would have done that. But no, Ricky can't make the playoffs. I'm still salty about it if you haven't figured that out. But Malcolm Brown is a guy where I'm like, pick him up. Yes, he's not going to be a for-sure start every week. But if you need to finagle a guy in there and he's got a good matchup, this week going up against Cleveland, then he's got Tampa Bay, Seattle. There could be some favorable matchups moving forward. The other guy I almost want to throw in there comes from Seattle, where, of course, Chris Carson is going to be owned in most of leagues. He's in 98% of leagues. But a guy who's only owned in 67%, who had a really good week 2. Yes, it's because he had a touchdown, got 10 carries. Rashad Penny might be another guy, sophomore running back out of San Diego State. Could be another guy that you look at that's not... And here's the thing you may be at with running backs. You're not looking for the guy that's going to be the main starter. You're going to look at the guy who, in certain matchups, maybe can vulture a touchdown. Or, hey, he may get 10 carries to spell the other running back. What is he going to do with those carries? And those are the two guys I think of right away. Rashad Penny of the Seahawks, Malcolm Brown of the LA Rams.
A guy that I would possibly go for it would be Peyton Barber for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it would be because clearly
you don't think it was just a boom and just lucky week 2?
No, I don't think so.
Because he didn't play well week 1.
He didn't play well week 1, but again, none of that team played well week 1. I think that he definitely seems to be the running back that
Arians.
Yeah, Bruce Arians likes the best on that team, even though he has said he wants to try and get Ronald Jones more involved. Ronald Jones doesn't seem to be getting involved, and Ronald Jones doesn't seem to really do much once he is somewhat involved. Outside of that week 1. Week 1 is probably the best game that he's had the last 2 seasons. Well, last season and the start of this season combined.
The reason why is the carries flipped. Ronald Jones had 13 carries compared to Barber's 8 in week 1. And then week 2, it completely flipped where Peyton Barber got 23 carries and Ronald Jones only got 4. So, it really depends. That's the only reason why I would kind of stay away from Peyton Barber, because it's you know what? If he's going to get or I pick him up, keep him on my bench and kind of see for week 2, because if he can get 20 carries a game, then sure, he might be able to put up some good fantasy points. But if this is going to be a year of it's Jones's game, then it's Barber's game, then it's Jones's game until we kind of figure out which one we want to go with, that's going to hurt you as a fantasy owner.
I mean, it definitely can, but I still think that it's going to be Peyton Barber. That's going to be the one that he rolls with for, I really think, the rest of the season. So Peyton Barber would certainly be one that I would pick up. Another one, Adrian Peterson. Mm-hmm. Darius Geis is going to be out for the next 8 weeks at least. Adrian Peterson, why not? He's going to be the early down back. He's not going to get really probably any catches. I think he had a catch this past week, and it was whoa, what's going on? Adrian Peterson doesn't catch the ball. But Adrian Peterson wouldn't be a bad one. He's most likely going to be the one that gets you your touchdowns at the goal line. And, hey, he had over 1,000 yards last year and 7 touchdowns, so I don't think that'd be a bad move either.
So I got one other one, too, that is an interesting pickup, and he's not available in the MVP league. But I would go out there and pick up Frank Gore this week. And the reason why, it's not just because, Ricky's looking at the points and Frank Gore had 13 points. On Monday, they were talking about Devin Singletary. Head coach Sean McDermott said that the team is still gathering information about his hamstring injury, and that the running back is day-to-day. ESPN also put the spin that at least it's not he's out for several months news we're seeing throughout the league on a dark Monday, but it wasn't exactly this could be one where it's hey, pick up Frank Gore, keep him on the bench. If Singletary can't go this weekend because of this hamstring injury, Frank Gore is the main back in Buffalo, can work next to Josh Allen, because Josh Allen is a guy that can benefit Frank Gore, because people aren't going to be able to load the box against Frank Gore every single down, because they're going to have to back off because, oh shit, if we load the box, Josh Allen's going to beat us deep. So I would almost pick up Frank Gore, see how Devin Singletary's injury goes this week, and if Singletary can't go, there you've got a running back you can play kind of as a starter, because Frank Gore, without Singletary there, would be a running back that you would pick up as kind of a tier 2 starter in fantasy leagues.
Ricky, let's move into the final part of the podcast here today, and it is who you starting, who you sitting, who you completely just either dropping or scooping for this week, whatever. I mean, I'll open it up to you. First off with who are you starting this week?
So,
because I have a fun one for the sit part.
Well, I'm going to start with who you starting, And I'm going to go with a guy I've already talked about today, and that's Gardner Minshew. Like, this is a guy, if you need a freaking quarterback, go out and get him. I liked him when he was with Mike Leach at Washington State. Loved talking about him. Just loved the last name in general when he was in college. The fucking stash is just legendary. Like, you gotta watch out for your stash bros as well. But no, he's a guy that has the potential to light it up. And like, if what we saw at the very end of that Houston game, if he can string it along for one game, go ahead. This week will be a test because he's going up against Tennessee. Tennessee has been very good this year. But then after that, you got Denver. They've been beaten by quarterbacks so far. Carolina gave up some good points to Jameis Winston. New Orleans, they're a team where your team may be getting the ball very often because Teddy Two Gloves may be that quarterback, depending on if he gets benched and Tyson Hill gets thrown out as the quarterback. Then you got Cincinnati, New York Jets. The rest of the schedule up until maybe week 9, even week 9, that Houston team, we've already seen it before, what they can do against Gardner Minshew, and that one's in Jacksonville. This schedule looks pretty favorable for Minshew. So I'm going to go ahead and be bold, start him against Tennessee. I think he'll get at least his 15 points, and he has the possibility of he'll be 15 to 16 point guy. But if you roll that dice 1 week, he may be a 20-pluser.
Ricky, anybody else you're definitely locking in to start this week?
So this isn't a lock in. This is kind of like I'm interested to see how he does. My metaphorical start, I'll call it. Mason Rudolph. He's a guy that got 10 points in the rest of the game he played when Big Ben went out. How does he do with a full week of practice, full week with the first reps with the first team, and he gets a full week of steam in front of him, knowing he's the starter for when the team goes to Candlestick and play, or Levi Stadium. I'm sorry, it's not Candlestick anymore, Levi Stadium, out there in the beautiful Bay Area of San Fran.
I would tend to agree with you there. I really liked what I saw from Mason Rudolph in week 2. I think that he can be a guy who really leads this team and can make some good throws. However, I am not confident in some of the guys that he may be throwing the football to. Juju, of course, is his top target and a great target to throw to. We know that. He's proven himself. Vance McDonald is up and down, and Dante Moncrief is a POS. So I think that...
he didn't have a freaking reception last week.
Because the guy can't catch the ball. So,
point taken.
I mean, it's really difficult when that's happening. But I think that Mason Rudolph will prove to be a really good quarterback and a good replacement for Big Ben the rest of the way. For me, starting, I am locking in David Montgomery. Why? Because the Bears finally figured out after 1 week of screwing around that David Montgomery is going to be our starting running back.
And maybe they should use the running back. Ooh, that's a novel idea.
That's an idea.
It's a novel idea. Usually the offense is run with 2 fronts. You don't want to be Napoleon and only fight a war on one front. I know that's a bad analogy because usually if you fight a war on one front, it gives you less to think about. But offenses work a little differently. You need that air pass, that air ground game working if you want to win.
And here's another guy that I know that some people are going to be like, he doesn't really, strike excitement into me. But he doesn't have to. He just needs to be consistent. That's John Brown for the Buffalo Bills. Now, I know I said I'm not touching anybody on Buffalo. But John Brown may be the only one I would touch outside of Josh Allen at this point, and Devin Singletary if he was healthy. So apparently I am touching people on Buffalo. But John Brown, consistent in his first 2 weeks, seems to be Josh Allen's favorite target. Mm-hmm. I think that that's a guy that for the rest of the season, especially in a PPR league, you could probably ride him.
Also, I forgot to mention my obligatory start that is basically just going to be Ricky's number 1 start of the week each and every week. If you have anyone on the Dallas Cowboys, just play them. They're going to put up 58, 59, 60 points. They're playing Miami. Woo! Go Cowboys. God, that hurt me to say. Go Cowboys. But yeah, you got to start them. They're playing Miami, and Miami is bad.
Ricky, I'm gonna bounce back to you. Who are you sitting this week?
So before I get to sits, I got one more. I got a sneaky start.
Ricky's
sneak of the week.
Start of the week.
Yeah, sneak of the week from Ricky Widmer, Greg Olsen. And the reason why I say that, had 11 points against Tampa Bay. Goes up against Arizona. Arizona, a defense that's given up some good points to right now they're ranked 32nd, very last in the league when it comes to opponent rank against tight ends. And Greg Olsen coming off of a good week where he had 6 catches, 110 yards, 11 points in fantasy for most traditional leagues against Tampa. Going to Arizona could have a good week, and he's only owned in about just over 50% of leagues. So he could be one that you go ahead and grab this upcoming week. When it comes to guys I am not starting, this is for me where it gets a little bit kind of bare. One, I'm going to go with some low-hanging fruit here. If you're in a deep league and you feel like you have to start Mitch Trubisky, I would avoid it. I would avoid starting Mitch Trubisky. Has not looked fantasy-wise like the Trubisky that we have seen in the past, but really the other one that I'm going with is defense. And yet again, could be some low-hanging fruit, but I mean, the Jets defense has been really well. Like, I know last week they got torched, but week 1, they looked very good. I wouldn't start them, even like the Bears defense against Washington. Bears defense hasn't been the worst thing in the world. 10 and 4 points, haven't been like they've been last week. But those are just usually for me with these sits, I'm looking defenses. Last year I was on the side of start this defense. I was wrong. This week I'm on the other side. Bears and Jets. Jets, of course, are playing Tom Brady. They ain't going to have a good time. I would stay away from those defenses this week.
The first person who I am sitting, and I want to first preface this off by saying that last week when we did our sits, the first person, Ricky, that I said sit confidently was Aaron Jones. And sometimes we get it wrong.
Yeah, we didn't have it. I said Jameis Winston, and he had an okay week. I'm going to say okay.
So Aaron Jones happened to do well, but it's only because the Vikings played like a bunch of idiots this past week. They should have won the game. Kirk Cousins has been awful. You should just take away all of his money until he starts to earn it.
Well, I told you what's going to happen. I said it live on this podcast. If he doesn't get it done in 2 years, Derek Carr is going to be a Minnesota Viking.
Well, my first sit this week, and I do feel confident about this, but felt confident about Aaron Jones last week too. Sit Devonta Freeman. He's been a disappointment to start this season, and it's so crazy because I really believed coming into the season, and I talked about it, that I thought he was going to be a guy to really pick up, really have on your team. The last couple of seasons, when he'd been healthy, the last couple of healthy seasons for him, he had over 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. I don't even know if he's going to get to 1,000 yards this year. In 2 games, he has 19 carries for 41 yards. It's a 2.2 average per carry. 8 carries for 19 yards in game 1 against the Vikings, 11 carries for 22 yards in game 2 against the Eagles. This week they go up against the Colts. I'm not starting him. I'm not doing it. He is on the bench. If I have Devonta Freeman, that is for sure. And Ricky, it's crazy to me that Devonta Freeman has been so crap to start this year.
Mm-hmm. Devonta Freeman's been interesting. Also, I was sitting here looking at running backs, and I've got a question for you about 2 of them. One of them, you talked about the Minnesota Vikings. What do you do with Josh Jacobs this week? You start him, hope he has an Aaron Jones-like week, sit him.
I'm sitting him.
Or is he going to have a Devonta Freeman week?
I'm sitting him.
Okay. Because Devonta Freeman week 1 didn't play well.
Minnesota Vikings
Jones played well
the Minnesota Vikings typically are great against the run. They can bottle up almost any running back, no matter how good they are. I think that they're going to have a bounce back week on defense.
Here's the other one I want to ask you about. And this is one I'm not saying sit, but I just want to ask you over under. Derrick Henry has been really good the first 2 weeks. 27 points week 1, a modest 15 this past week. Over under 13 points going into Jacksonville week 3 for Derrick Henry, former Roll Tide.
Under.
Okay.
Under. Probably around 10.
Okay. You think this will be his worst week of the year? Because he's at 27, 15.
You mean so far?
Yeah, so far.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And my other sit, this is the week where John Ross comes back down to earth. It's on the road at Buffalo. Buffalo's defense is pretty darn good. Don't expect John Ross to be able to get over the top on Buffalo's defense this week. He has a clunker in Buffalo.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that you also got to look at is like, it seemed like he's going to get his targets. It's just how much is he going to be able to do with it? Like I said last week, would have had 10 or 11 last week. If it wasn't for that big touch. Even let's even say that, like, he might have had under 10 points because that was if I'm not mistaken, that was a long yardage touchdown. So most of his yards came from that touchdown. If I am not mistaken, that's another thing that could have gone into it. He probably would have been under 10 points if not for that big catch.
No, completely agree. He would not have been, and he may have been at 10 points only, or around 10 points, only if it's a PPR league. But other than that, he would have been definitely under.
Yeah.
Ricky, any other final thoughts? Any other starts, sits, anything else for the good of the podcast?
So Ricky's question of the week, and I'm putting in one claim for sure, but I have to ask you live on the podcast like I do each and every week. I'm going to try to pick up Greg Olsen, but I'm 2-0. Probably not going to be able to pick him up in my regular league. That's some of the MVP guys and ex-MVP guys. Is there another tight end I should look for this week? Because Vernon Davis didn't really do well, and I don't know if I want to ride him into week 2. Is there any tight end that you think, do I go with maybe a Will Disley, who had 17 points this last week after only having one catch in the first game? Do I roll with a Jason Witten? Do I roll with an Eric Ebron? Help me out, B. I need a tight end for this week. Who's Ricky's tight end of the week?
I'd roll with Jason Witten.
Okay.
I don't trust Will Disley. I mean, he did have those 2 touchdowns, but this week he could come back and have 1 catch for 3 yards.
Here's the only thing that worries me, and it really with the other ones, it's kind of in the same boat. Of that, Witten 3 and 4 receptions in the last 2 games, but I will put a claim on him. Here's the other question I want to ask you. Now, I've got Deshaun Watson in this league, so I'm set on quarterback. Do I flat out drop Drew Brees because I can't put him on the IR because Hunter Henry is there? Do I just flat out, hey, he's out for 6 weeks, I got Deshaun Watson, Drew Brees, goodbye?
You may have to.
Because let's see, where's 6 weeks from now is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Deshaun Watson's by his week 10. So if Drew Brees is back by week 10, I can use him. If I put in a claim for Greg Olsen and I say drop Vernon Davis, should I put in the Jason Witten one for Drew Brees and try to get both, or should I put them both in for Vernon Davis and just see who I get?
Say that one more time.
So I already put in a claim for Greg Olsen.
Okay.
And I'm dropping Vernon Davis.
Yeah.
For Jason Witten's, do I drop Drew Brees? Maybe I'm lucky and get both of them. Or do I just put both of them in, this guy for Vernon, and whoever I get is who I get?
That's what I would do.
Okay.
I'd do the second one.
Kind of
Second
like what I
option you
did
had.
in our league.
Yeah.
When I got Deshaun Jackson, because that was another thing which I didn't say. The second thing was that I wanted Marquise Brown. Somebody took him, so it went to my second one, which was Deshaun Jackson. So that goes back to me losing by 2 points. But that's it. Ricky's tight end of the week is set. It's either Greg Olsen or Jason Witten. I'm going to get one of them, hopefully.
Very good. Very good. And that will Very good. Wonderful. Great to hear, Ricky. I'm so happy
Ricky.
for you.
Well, I forgot to ask my tight end of the week.
And it's very fun to note that this week 3, in the league that Ricky and I are both in, we are playing each other.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Is my team going to be like week 1 and we basically came out and Thanos the week?
Oh, man, you killed week 1. You had, 140 points?
20.
20?
I made a really good fucking first impression in that league.
Yes, you did.
Hey, guys, I'm here.
And then he came back and shriveled up.
Yeah, that he did. It gets you sometimes. And it got cold. It got a little cold in Chicago.
Got cold. It's
shrinkage. Jerry, it's shrinkage. It's Jerry. That's my my bad George Costanza, even though I look like him.
All right, folks, that is going to wrap it up for us today. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast like I hope you enjoy every single What's Your Fantasy podcast. And hopefully we were able to help you out a little bit with your fantasy questions, concerns, and hopefully we'll help bring you a win this week, unless you're playing us.
Yeah.
You have to lose. We can't go 0-3.
Or you win because we're bad.
Yeah, we suck.
Yeah,
but again, make sure you head over to patreon.com, become a patron for just $1 a month. You can help support this podcast and all podcasts at MVP. We would greatly appreciate it. And we hope that you continue to watch What's Your Fantasy all throughout the season, as we are coming to you every single week. And we love doing it. That is for sure. So, for Ricky Widmer, I am Brandon Swanson saying so long, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend. Week 3 in the NFL coming at you Thursday night. So long, everybody.